Well, I wasn't going to film a video this week, and then I noticed this amazing question from Amanda asking, do you have any advice for people auditioning for drama school who really want to stand out? I want to answer that question for you, Amanda, because it is such a good question. What makes someone stand out in a drama school audition? So of course, I'm going to be talking about how to stand out in your Shakespeare piece if you're doing a Shakespeare monologue for your audition, because I am Sarah and this is Shakespeare with Sarah, and we talk about Shakespeare for actors. So before I jump into my top tip for standing out, I really just want to talk about some no-nos, things that don't make you stand out, that people sometimes think will make you stand out. Number one, making big flashy choices. No, it doesn't help if you suddenly burst into song or do a cartwheel or take a really strange interpretation of a line, suddenly burst into tears. Those big choices generally don't really help. It's mostly just going to make the panel go, what are they doing? So don't do that. Don't try and get outside the norm. And number two, same goes for obscure monologues. So if you find a monologue that you're like, oh yeah, no one's done this before, they're going to be like, oh wow, yay, something we haven't seen today. They might be like that, but probably that monologue is not popular for a reason. Usually the popular monologues they're chosen, they're done often for a reason, and it's because there's stuff going on for the character that you can showcase, the text is good and easy to work with, or really nice detail. There are reasons that there are certain monologues that are popular. I'm not saying you have to do like the most popular ones, but don't go out of your way to find something that's super obscure because you think it'll stand out, because really, nah. Honestly, my tip for standing out is what Steve Martin says. Be so good they can't ignore you. And you might be like, man, that sucks, you're just telling me to be good. But the thing is, most people don't actually know how to be good when it comes to Shakespeare. Actually, there is something fairly key to understand about good Shakespeare acting. And if you can get this right, it does make you stand out, because it's hard to get right. Even for me, we all struggle. So the key to actually doing a good job, the key to good Shakespeare acting, standing out at your audition when you do your Shakespeare monologue, is balancing truthfulness with poetry. Now, I talked a little bit about this in my movement and gesture video, and I really recommend you look at that because it really spells out a lot of what people do wrong actually when it comes to Shakespeare. So I'll link that below as well, can keep that one saved. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it now. Good Shakespearean actors really understand that there is truthfulness at the core of what we're doing. Just because the words are ye olde worldy doesn't mean that you're wandering around the stage like this and pronouncing things like this and sounding like this. That's not what's going on here. Actually, they're real characters going through real experiences that are just kind of a little bit extra everything than normal. They're bigger than normal, they're a little bit unusual sometimes, the situations that they're in, and their feelings are big. But it all comes from a truthful place. But at the same time, you are working with poetry. So you need to make the most of the verse. You need to emphasize the right words. You need to use vocal variety. You need to understand rhythm when you're delivering the monologue while still adhering to that truthfulness. That's that balance that I'm talking about. And it is hard. So most actors fall into one camp more than the other, usually depending on, well, a bit on your personality and a bit on your training. So some actors will fall into what I call the realism trap, where they're concentrating so much on connecting to the character and being truthful that actually they're too relaxed with the text. They're not doing the poetry. They're not bringing out the words enough. They're not giving enough energy. They haven't thought about how people are going to track what they're saying and enjoy the poetry. This usually happens when you've had more training with contemporary texts, or you've trained in screen acting and you're used to having things a little bit smaller, pared back a little bit, but you're concentrating so much on that truthfulness, you're getting it too close to your daily life and it's too small. We're not following the verse, it doesn't sound interesting, you're not connecting to your breath. That's not good. Then other people will go too far into the Shakespearean acting trap, because this is often what happens when people think of Shakespeare, is that they make everything too big and they don't connect to truth because they're so busy making sure the words sound beautiful and they're using their full range and they're thinking about rhythm. So how do I do this? How do I balance those two things? John Barton, who is I kind of think of him as the father of Shakespearean acting today. He calls this marrying the two traditions. So when you're bringing the truthfulness, but you're also bringing that skill with the poetry together. So that's what we want, togetherness. He's got a great video of this that's on YouTube. I will link it below, and actually you might consider buying his book or buying the DVD series because you will learn so much from that if you have never heard of it before. It's amazing. But let me give you a few tips now to start you off. Firstly, you do need to do all the same kinds of character prep work that you would do for a contemporary monologue. Think about your character as a real character living today, even if they live kind of in a world that has different rules to it, I guess, because historically, if it's a historical character, they're going to have different things surrounding them, but they're still real. They still deal with struggles. So whatever prep you normally do, whether it's using, your Stella Adler or your Uta Hagen questions, whatever it is that works for you, try and apply that as much as possible to a Shakespearean monologue. There's no reason that you can't. Some things won't directly apply, but a lot of it does. And it's really about going through that process and doing the work the same way that you would if this were a contemporary monologue. I actually have a free checklist that you can download that walks through the process that I use in my character prep when I'm doing a monologue. So that will be linked in the description box below as well. That can really help you understand how it can all kind of fit together. And now when it comes to making the most of the verse, so that's the other tradition, if you have no experience with that, that is going to be quite a bit of work. And that's why you should subscribe to my channel, because that's what I do here. I have a playlist called Get Better at Shakespeare, and there's a lot of stuff there. So you can go to my homepage and find that there if you're starting out. But here's my quick tip. If you've never really done Shakespeare before and you don't have a lot of time and you want to just get better at the verse really quickly, I want you to highlight the verbs one color and adjectives and nouns another color. Then I want you to notice which one pops up the most. Which color have you got the most of when you've highlighted your monologue? If you've got a lot of verbs, that's going to be a very action-driven monologue. These are often quite energetic, and I want you to practice really highlighting each verb in a different way. So to start with, try going through the monologue and using a different pitch every time you hit a verb. If you've got a lot of adjectives, I want you to do this exercise. Imagine that you've got a paintbrush, and as you say the monologue, I want you to paint a beautiful picture. Now, the picture can be whatever you want. If you're talking about a person, maybe you're going to imagine that you're painting a beautiful portrait of this person, or if it's a scene, a landscape, whatever it is, whatever feels right to you. It actually doesn't really matter what you're imagining to paint, so you can choose something. And every time you say an adjective or a particularly descriptive noun, I want you to really imagine that you're painting that color. I want you to paint the adjective onto your canvas. So it might look a little bit like this. What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Now these are just exercises. It's not how you're going to actually perform the monologue, but you need to go through this process in order to find the variety and the rhythm that works for the monologue. This is the work that you need to do that falls into the other tradition. So give some thought to which area am I kind of weaker in? Do I tend to kind of go over the top and emphasize the verse too much and get carried away with beauty of the words? Or do I tend to be a bit too chill and a little bit too internalized because I've got more training in, screen acting or contemporary acting? What I really want you to take away from this is that you need to prep both sides. You need to prep your character work, your connection, your realism, and you need to prep your verse speaking, okay? And that is what's going to come together, balance so well, and that is what will make you stand out, because so few people balance the two things well. If you're not sure, you've got to get some feedback from someone you trust, okay? So that could be a coach, or that could be someone that you've worked with for a long time. Just ask them, do I go too big or too small? They'll probably be able to tell you, even if you don't know. Or record yourself and look back at it and like, do I look like a crazy person, or do I look like I'm about to fall asleep? Right, that's it from me. Let me know if you have questions. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and good luck for your auditions. See you next time.